Welcome to the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. My name is Katie Dodd, and I'm a nutrition entrepreneur. I spent 7 years as a side hustler before diving into entrepreneurship full time. Before making the leap, I was bringing in 6 figures through my side hustle. If I can do it, you can too. This podcast is for dietitians, interns, and students who want to be inspired to start or perfect the side hustle of their dreams. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to the 221st episode of the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast, Become a Dietitian with Nicole Kuperus. So I am so excited to invite Nicole to the podcast. She has been in my world for quite a while. She came into my blogging accelerator programs as a student, went through her journey of school, internship, passing the RD exam, and is now a dietitian, starting this incredible brand called Become a Dietitian. Nicole is in my Blog Boss Mastermind and is doing really incredible work early on in her career. So I asked her to come on the podcast to share a little bit more about her brand, but then also about becoming a dietitian. My hope is that this episode is helpful for students, but then also for other dietitians, just to hear more about Nicole's story and her journey. And then also, if you have students in your world now or in the future, you have this wonderful new resource that you can send them to. So Nicole, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Katie. Thanks for having me.
So my first question for you is, could you just tell us a little bit more about your story and why you created the brand Become a Dietitian?
Yeah, so I actually was a transfer student in my undergrad. And so I transferred from exercise science to the major nutrition and food science. And so I feel like that had a huge impact on like me learning the process of what it takes to become a dietitian, because I had to do a lot of research into my like steps of how to go about my career and or go about my schooling, and whether I like do the undergrad in exercise science or I switch over. So I did a lot of research into it. And then throughout my journey, I feel like there's just a lot of like ups and downs, like as life goes. But I feel like one of the things that he had like a major impact on me after schooling was studying for the RD exam. And I feel like because of that, like I had to take it a couple times and I had to do my research to figure out what kind of resources I wanted to utilize. And then I feel like I got a lot of questions about like how to become a dietitian, like what steps to take, like what kind of classes you need to take, and maybe other resources. And so because of that, I decided that I enjoyed sharing about my knowledge and all the things that I had learned, and I wanted to help other people along their journey to be successful, just like how I was, but maybe help them so it'd be even an easier transition for them. Did that answer the question, or was there another question?
That totally answered the question. And I love that story. And I think oftentimes when we try to figure out what do I want to do in my business, sometimes it is looking back on our own journey and saying like, man, I wish there was someone who could have been a guide for me, someone who could have helped me. And so even the conversation, I love that you're so transparent in the fact that it took you a couple times to pass the RD exam. I feel like this is something we don't talk a lot about, but there's a lot of students who get out of school. Many dietetic students and dietitians are perfectionists, and they feel like because they don't pass this exam that they're a failure. And then they take it again and they fail, and they take it again and they fail. And it's so frustrating. And so I love that you've crafted this whole brand that's going to help, current and future students become dietitians with the schooling part, the internship, and then, the exam piece, like the whole journey that it takes to get here, and having the support that maybe looking back, you wish you had. So I appreciate your transparency and what you're building.
Yeah, I
So
feel like
yeah,
that like was part of my story too. Is just like a little bit of how you hear people say like I passed in my first like on my first try, and then you like set your expectations so high, but then reality also you have to take into account. And I feel like it's really hard sometimes to come back from that when you feel like you may be like feeling that you're a failure, but in the end, like as long as you keep going and you strive to still pass, you're not going to be a failure. You're still a success. Like it's just a work in progress, I guess.
Yeah, it's like you just gotta keep going. And I look back, I mean,
Mm.
I've been a dietitian since 2008, but when I passed that darn RD exam, I think I passed it by like 1 point or something. It's not like I passed it with like flying colors, but the bottom line is you just gotta pass it and you gotta pass it once and you're good.
Mhm.
I don't know about you, Nicole, but I do not like taking tests. I get massive test anxiety, and nothing encourages me to continue with my CEUs than the threat of taking that exam again.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people kept telling me, you just need that 25. You just need the 25. All it takes is a 25 to become a dietitian. And yeah, I was like, I just need a 25. So,
So, so
mm,
stressful. I think you know this about me, and I think some of my listeners know, but I am a board certified specialist in gerontological nutrition. So I have the CSG exam from CDR. And with this exam, you actually have to take a test. And every 5 years, you have to retake a test in order to maintain your certification. And the idea of taking that test, I'm like, that's too much, that's too stressful. So I've actually been on the CSG exam development board for years because by being on the board, I actually got a pass to where I didn't have to take the exam the next time. So I've actually been a CSG dietitian for quite a while and I've never taken the test just because the test anxiety is so stressful for me. And I'm like, like, and I feel like too, like, wouldn't it be awful if I failed a test that I helped to write? But it's not about knowledge. It's about tests and it's about the just even the anxiety we get. So, oh, goodness.
yeah, for sure. That was the one piece of like taking the exam so many times. They ended up changing it in between my like third and fourth time. I think I passed on the fourth time. And they added that extra 30 minutes. And I think that's what really helped me. It was just like I had the time to actually process the questions and select, like, go through and be like, these ones are not correct and these ones are like more correct. So I feel like that extra time was helpful. So I would like, I definitely agree with the test anxiety. Like I was so stressed I couldn't even go through, and I was just like, I gotta go, I gotta keep going, or else I'm not gonna get through all the questions because you have to answer all 125. So
And two, it's like you've decided on a career. I'm going to be a dietitian. You've committed so many years to school, grad school time, money, all the things, and it all comes down to passing this one little test. So that's a lot of
mhm.
pressure, years and years and years of pressure. And I know we're kind of getting in the weeds of the questions I told you we'd talk about, but I even think about like I think there's this added pressure of you've told everyone I'm taking the RD exam. So it's even that pressure of like I have to tell people. Like people are waiting anxiously and I don't want to let them down or let them think that I'm a failure. So I feel like there's so much pressure with that darn exam. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know it was kind of a tangent, but let's get back to the question list I gave you. So my next question. So what is your goal with your brand? Become a dietitian. Like where do you hope that you go with this brand?
Yeah. So a part of what I hope to do with this brand is to help connect RD to Bs with resources that will help them in both like schooling in their internship and master not masters and in passing the exam and then like into their career. So I'm hoping to help connect them with like whether that be resources like learning what it takes to get to that point or just like different kind of knowledge and guides and also just like connect them with dietitians that may be doing what they're doing so that they can learn from other people um like where they're at and what they're actually doing to see if it's really where they want to be. And I feel like it's really important because like you may feel like you have a passion in something, but then you actually go to do it during your internship and you realize that's not for me. Or maybe you realize that something that you really thought you wouldn't like, you realize that you actually ended up enjoying a lot. So I feel like it's just, yeah, really important to like find those connections and resources that can really help you move along your path of becoming a dietitian and learning more about what you're actually passionate about versus what you feel like you have to do.
And that's a good point because one of the things I love about being a dietitian is there's so many different things that you can do. I just got back from FNCE, the Food Nutrition Conference and Expo, and I was talking to another dietitian, and I was saying sometimes I don't feel like I'm a dietitian anymore because I'm so heavy into the entrepreneurial role. But then I had to remind myself that no, what I do is dietitian work too. There's so many things that we could do, whether or not it's clinical or untraditional or all of the above. So I love that. Awesome. So since we're talking about your brand becoming a dietitian, I love that you've shared a little bit more about your story, your vision, where you're hoping to go. But for any students who are listening who maybe aren't so familiar with the path, would you be able to break down like what are just those simple steps for actually becoming a dietitian right now?
Yeah. So we did talk about a few already, but I will still lay them out for you in case you don't already know. So the first step, you have to earn a master's degree from an Ascend accredited program in dietetics. The second, you have to complete your 1,000 supervised practice hours, whether that be with a dietetic internship or however that works, in whatever program you end up attending. And then the third, you have to pass that national licensure exam that we've been talking about. And then your fourth step, you have to meet requirements to practice in the state that you are currently practicing in. And then fifth, you have to continue completing your professional education requirements, which are the CEUs that we mentioned, which stands for continuing education. What's the last one? CEU,
Units, I think.
something.
Yeah, continuing education units.
Something
Yeah,
like that. Yeah.
yeah. CEUs.
So, yeah, CEUs. That's
Yeah,
what they're referred to by everyone. So,
I know. Continuing professional education. Oh golly, what is it called? Now I'm all confused. That's okay. We know. We know what you're talking about.
yeah.
Well, and I'm glad that you kind of shared that. I know that seems very simple, but also for a lot of dietitians who are listening, I mean, this master's requirement's new. Back in the day, it was just the bachelor's level. So now they have to earn the master's from an accredited program, do their internship, pass that exam. If they're in a state with licensure, meet those requirements, and then keep their credential by doing those CEUs. Awesome. So
Mhm.
I know that you've talked about like, okay, here are the steps to become a dietitian, but I'd love if you could share with us as someone who is a relatively like newer dietitian, a recent graduate, what are some of the more important steps of becoming a dietitian that you don't necessarily learn about in school?
Yeah. So I did come up with a few steps of things that I felt like were super helpful when I learned a little bit along the path of becoming a dietitian, whether that was during my internship, undergrad, or as I was even studying for the RD exam. And the first is being open to different experiences. And as I talked about a little bit already, but I feel like you never know what you're actually going to be passionate about until you try it. Like you never know if you're going to dislike something until you try it. So even though you think you may be passionate about one thing, like I know I went in thinking I maybe had a passion for sports dietetics, but learning a little bit about maybe all you're really doing is measuring out protein, which is not, but depending where you work, you could be doing things that you don't really love. And so you may realize that that may not actually be your passion once you get into it. And then the second is find a strong support network. So I feel like along my journey, I've realized how much having that community around me has been super important. And I feel like I very much prioritize having that community and seeking out people that I feel like are going to support me and that have supported me along the way. Because as I did mention, like failing the RD exam is not an easy path to take. And it definitely takes a lot of people to help you improve your mindset and get grounded again so that you can work on going back into the material and studying again, because after you've looked at all that material and have studied for so long, you really don't want to get back into it to study, to take it again and hope that you will pass the second time, because you just never know. You may think you'll pass in a couple tries and it may take you 4 tries. So that was definitely a huge thing, is having a strong support network. And then the third one is just being confident in yourself, both your skills and your knowledge. Because oftentimes I feel like you may think like, I don't know enough. I can't do this. But you have to change that mindset to, I can do this. And maybe I don't know everything. You have to be willing to go out there and learn. And if you don't practice, you're never gonna learn. If you're not gonna like get to the next step of like, all right, I made a mistake there, now I'm gonna fix it this time. So it's just really important that you are confident that you can do it, and just realize that maybe the first time around you may not know everything about it, but as you go, you'll learn it as you like practice. So like even like going into like sharing in a counseling session, or like whether you're going into a room in clinical, which was definitely my most stressful experience during my internship because I knew nothing about clinical before going in. Um, I realized that like it just takes practice. You just have to keep doing something and continue to like try to gain more knowledge and like ask questions, and as you learn then you'll grow and you'll get better as you practice. But if you don't start if you don't start somewhere, you're never going to get to where you want to be. So you have to start.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that takes being confident in yourself. So
I love that. And I hope that everyone listening, even if you're not an RD to be, that you're hearing that because, those tips, I'm just going to recap them real quick. They're also relevant to business. Be open to different experiences, have a strong support network, and be confident in yourself, your skills, and your knowledge. And so, as you're saying that, I'm like, yes, for students, but then also, yes, for dietitians who are listening to this. I'm so glad that we're seeing shifts, hopefully, in younger students who are coming into the profession with more confidence, with more of a stronger, solid background. But I think of a lot of dietitians out there who want to start side hustles or be entrepreneurs. They might feel like, well, gosh, I really want to do this area, but I feel like, oh, I can't really do it because I'm working in this area. So that even that piece of like, try something new, you might like it.
mhm.
And you don't have to stick with something just because you've kind of committed to it. If it's not your jam, you can always pivot. Strong support network is everything, and be confident. I love that. So I know that you created a resource for RDs to be for students who want to become a dietitian. So can you tell us more about your free resource for students, what it is and where they can find it?
Yeah, so this free resource is going to be on my website, and it is a resource to share a little bit about the steps that it takes to become a dietitian, both what they teach you in school and what you aren't taught in school, but what I wish I knew when I was going through school. So, yeah.
Awesome. So if you are a student listening to this, I want you to go to becomeadietitian.com. Very easy website to remember. Becomeadietitian.com. Snag that free resource. I've had a little sneak peek in it. It's really good. And if you're a dietitian listening, if you have any students that you know or people who are interested in becoming dietitians, refer them to this resource, but then also the website that Nicole has. I know that you have a really robust plan for really continuing to build out this resource for students and future students. So dietitians, take note. RDs to be, go check it out. And where can people find you online?
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring back, I do have it actually on my website. It's under the contact page. So if you're looking for signing up for the newsletter, that's where you can find it. And where you can find me online, I am on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and all the pages are all at Become a Dietitian. So yeah, I think that was all of them.
Perfect. Pretty much everywhere. Nicole is
Yeah,
everywhere. Become a
pretty much.
dietitian. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Nicole. I appreciate you sharing a little bit more about your story and the work that you're doing for supporting students in our field. So, yeah, thanks so much for being on, and thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. It was so fun.
Yeah.